Mate, I just want to run my hands through your beard. I've got such beard envy.
Well, I've never done anything like this before, so...
Don't worry, mate. I'll be gentle with you. Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to Derek Marshall about his life-changing decompression injury. Over a brew, Derek tells me how, after a relatively easy dive up in Scapa Flow, ended in a disaster and in being put in the chamber. Do you fancy a brew? How's it going, beard face? You alright?
Alright, how you doing?
Mate, I just want to run my hands through your beard. I've got such beard envy. I can't grow mine so long. It's horrendous.
Yeah, but at least you don't have, like, dry suit neck seal.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my questions, so let's not jump the gun. As long as you got a brew and you're happy to chat. What are you drinking? You on tea or coffee?
It's just tea today.
Good lad.
I've had too many coffees today already.
We talked about this yesterday, that I love the smell of coffee. We filled up with fuel before we went to the Lake District, and two lads came out of the petrol station. They just brewed up. You know, they got a little Costa station in there, and it smelled so good. But I don't like coffee. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. Derek, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Nice to see that you've got your brew with you. If you want to give us a bit of a brief intro, tell us a little bit who you are and whatever. Don't give too much away, because clearly I've got quite a bit written down here. And see how we get on, mate. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, I'm Derek Marshall, live in Leicester. But I learned to dive back in the early 90s, came through the paddy system, as you do, and dived in loads of places over the years, which I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, sat here in lockdown at the moment.
Well, that was my first question, because I've seen you've been a little bit, probably as vocal as I have, about the sort of lockdown, the measures that are in place and people not adhering to them. So short of being in Leicester and locked down longer than anybody else seemed to be, how's COVID affected you, mate?
It's almost like a 24-hour thing, because part of my job is working in the traffic section at our local authority.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got COVID coming out of our ears, protocols, obviously all the things that are in place in the city.
Yeah.
Obviously, there wasn't much traffic at the start of lockdown. Now it's back. We've got, obviously, the additional bike lanes, areas for people to walk to be nice and safe, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of don't really get away from it. And then when things start kicking off on Facebook, I sometimes just snap. And it's like, right, I've had enough now. I'm going to say what I really think.
It's kind of, I'm so almost sick of hearing, or because of COVID measures, it's an obvious thing that doesn't need to be said anymore, isn't it? Like day and night, it comes with the times, doesn't it?
It is. It's just you almost don't need to say social distancing really anymore, because the people that are doing it are just doing it naturally now. Everyone's like, you walk down the street and you automatically go round someone, don't you?
I think the only time I find it not happening, other than the idiots, are people that generally don't interact with the people up. So like my customer base might be people who are in retirement and would stay in quite a lot, or not interact with a lot of people generally day to day. So they find themselves, certainly if I have to go in the house, they'll gravitate towards you. And I'm like, whoa, get away, will you? And they're like, oh, flipping out, I forgot, because they're just not used to it, because they're not interacting. Whereas I guess me and you are out in the workplace day to day. It's kind of an easy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you just get used to it. Obviously, if you were furloughed or shielding and you've been at home for most of it, like you say, you're not necessarily used to all the sort of almost like the unwritten rules that have come in. Like you walk down the pavement and one of you, all right, I'll go on the grass, because you're there, or it's just become second nature after a while.
Right. Feel free to get on your soapbox and be as political as you want with this. What's your standpoint on the sort of non-believers come non-mask wearers? Idiots in my view, but what's your stand on that?
Well, the non-believers I think is a difficult one, because you can't necessarily change somebody's mind.
No.
If they've not actually come into contact with anyone who's had it, or know someone who's got a relative who's maybe died of it or whatever. But the rest of it, it's like not wearing a mask. It's like, it's the law now. It's like, as they say in America, just wear the damn mask.
Yeah, but nobody's policing it, are they? That's the thing. Nobody's standing outside your local like pie shop and going, oh, you can't come in here without a mask. But there'll be a sign up saying masks must be worn in here, but they're not saying get out.
No, that's right. We've got that situation where the shops are going, well, it's not really our place to be telling people, trying to enforce laws, and the police are going, well, we've not necessarily got the manpower.
Yeah, it's an hard one, isn't it?
Obviously, in every town now, it's got a different set of rules. You know, Leicester's got our restrictions. We've got the Northwest and Northeast have come in recently. Wales, obviously, being one of the separate nations. It's like there's probably 20 different sets of local rules now. Well, so wherever you go, you've almost got to research before you go.
Yeah. Well, check this out. So I live in Wigan, so the Northwest. Everywhere around us, we're like an egg. We are the egg yolk, mate. So all the egg white around us is all locked down now. You're not allowed to talk to people. You're not allowed to smile. If you stand still for too long, you're going to get shot. Whereas here, you can do what you want. You can have a party. You can have a rave at our house if you want.
As long as you don't invite anyone from Bolton, Manchester.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. No egg whites, mate, just egg yellow.
Yeah, I'm just missing the fact, you can't invite someone around for a couple of days. It's a single big thing for me in lockdown because I do spend a lot of time on my own. I live on my own,
right.
Sort of thing. So not having people around is perfectly normal to me, but then not to be able to have someone around when you want to is, that's the hard thing.
That's kind of why this started up, really. Well, one of the reasons, if I was to list 3 main reasons, it was a good chance to catch up with people that either live the other side of the world, so I don't see very often. Have a brew with someone is like the most natural thing, or a beer, isn't it, of a weekend, perhaps. Certainly, if you were to rock up at my front door, do you want a brew? Fancy a brew?
Yeah.
So it was...
Maybe it should be whiskey in the mug today.
But not for me, but yeah, it's not another one for me, that. So it's your birthday tomorrow, is it?
It is. It's that one of those dreaded numbers tomorrow.
Is it? My 40th was at the end of March, so we didn't do anything for mine. It was a bit gash.
I'm 1 on from that. Yeah, I got 5 in mine tomorrow.
Well, I kind of figured because you can't do anything, you're still like the year before. So I'm just going to drag it out. So I'm 40 next year. Yeah,
I'm going to have a refund on 49 and do it again.
I like it. Good idea.
Yeah, I can subscribe to that idea.
So I think a question that comes out quite regular on more of the dive forums, certainly not on the Girls at Scuba pages, but on most of the other pages, about people diving with tashes and beards. Now, I've got a really good mate of mine. He'll remain nameless, but he'll know who he is if he listens to this. And he gets Vaseline rubbed all in his tash, and it looks horrendous. And I'm like, I can't be doing that. But he's convinced that that's the way of keeping a seal. And I started just shaving underneath my nostrils. But now I've let it grow out a little bit, so it's slightly longer. Don't get any problems at all. Do you find that pretty much the same?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I used to, when I first dived, I had it sort of short, probably similar length to yours, actually. Yeah. And didn't really have any issues. But a friend of mine who just got a tash, he always did the Vaseline thing. And he was always like rooting through his kit box looking for it and sort of thing and panicking if he couldn't find it. But I'm lucky. What I tended to find, and it's still the same now, it's longer from the mask point of view, is when you're at the surface, I get an occasional trickle. Once I get down to 4 or 5 meters, you just get the beginnings of the pressure and it just pushes it on.
Yeah.
And then I very, very rarely get a leak. I only get a leak if I've got a little bit maybe beside on the cheeks caught. You know, when you do your hood and you sort of go round and when you come in from underneath, you have that little bit, don't you, where the straps are. And if I'm not really careful with that, the two combined can cause an issue. But for me, masks have never really been a problem, even with the sort of longer beard. But
no.
For me, the big thing is neck seals. That's the one. It's like, you can't come out from the front anymore. Like normally you just sort of do that, don't you? And it's like it's off. And now I'm having to go from the back. And
do you have to do you sort of trim your neck area for that to get that nice clean seal?
No, nice and natural.
Yeah, it's not so bad, is it? Yeah. Oh, natural.
But, no, I've never really sort of shaved cheeks or necklines or anything like that. And I've used both neoprene and latex neck seals over the years. Neoprene, I think the modern ones that are like the thinner neoprene, that I think a lot of places are using now, that tends to be better than the old-fashioned
malleable,
sort of seals.
Yeah.
But yeah, my current suit has got latex ones.
Right.
And apart from getting the classic hangman's noose that I think most people get,
yeah,
and an occasional little bit of soreness, yeah, I don't have any problems with it.
Now, how long have you had a full beard?
Mid-90s. So only a couple of years after I learned to dive. So
Really?
yeah, when I learned to dive, I was clean shaven because I was like early 20s.
Yeah.
But the beard has always been something that I knew was going to be there one day. It's just like one of those strange things you knew it was going to happen.
Ace. You know what you should do just for the crack, mate? Just take it off. Just literally have it away, and no one will know who you are.
Not after 20 odd years with one. No, that's right.
It'd be the maddest thing. You could turn up at your mate's house and it'd be like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah, you'll think I'm a door-to-door salesman or something.
Oh yeah, mate, that'd be ace. Are you still sort of not being able to dive down there?
What, as in with lockdown rules and things?
Yeah.
Or just generally? We can. I mean, Stony Cove is open.
Yeah.
They've got various restrictions. You have to book in advance. Obviously, they're limiting numbers. I think they're trying to create like car space in the bottom car park, things like that. I'll be honest, I've not actually been there since they brought it in, so I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
But I do know that you have to book in advance, certainly at the moment. But yeah, there's still things you can do. And I was away the week before last and actually did a little bit of shore diving.
Yeah, where'd you go?
Up into the Hebrides, up into North Uist.
All right.
Places. I've got a friend who lives up there who's like dived for years. He's got his own compressor in a shed because there's not exactly dive shops out there. So I met up with him and we did some dives just walking into some of the locks up there.
Mega.
There's some really nice dives up there, actually.
Do you take a camera in with you?
I don't. I used to take a GoPro sort of towards the end of when I dived regularly.
Yeah.
A few years ago, and then it just kind of died a death, really. It wasn't that I got bored. It was I wasn't very good, and I thought I think I'm just going to enjoy looking at stuff.
I get you. My only reason to get one was because those kind of dives didn't interest me. Whereas now I bought a camera, I was so interested in that thing that I'd see, and I'd be looking for a difference in it, and then trying to learn what it was about it, and then improve my dive technique, so I could take a better video or a better stills picture, which was even harder to keep still in the water if the water's moving. Did you see much marine life when you were up there?
There's obviously loads and loads of crabs. If you get to the right areas, there's quite a few scallops. The normal sort of things you get on the rocky stroke sandy seabeds, really. And you found a few new newbanks up there. And if you really sort of stopped and focused for a minute, you start seeing the little things. Yeah, you'll know that as a photographer, videographer. You've got to stop and you've got to look at it. If you just skim over the top, you won't see it. But for me, diving is all about just being in the water and, if you like, almost away from the world for a bit. Yeah. So adding more tasks into it. Sometimes I enjoy it and sometimes I don't, which is I think why, for me, like the GoPro was just like, I can't bother with this. Throw it away.
I get that, the simplicity and the tranquility, because it's, other than your bubbles, it's pretty silent, isn't it? And just
that's it.
Getting away from the world and not being task loaded in any way, other than just
the phone can't ring. Nobody can come and hand you another folder of work. All the usual things. You're not stuck in traffic. It's just you and the water and whatever you're looking at the time. Or for me, one of the big things is just watching the fish.
Yeah.
I'm the same at Stony Cove, watching the fish in there.
Yeah.
Or out in the Red Sea. There's just more colourful fish. And lots more of them. But I just enjoy shallow diving, really.
It is better, I think, because it's warmer generally. There's tons more light, so you can definitely see more. And the marine life's generally all there, isn't it? I always find, like, Stony Cove, you go down to 30 metres, there's nothing worth seeing, if you can see it at all. And the same pretty much, other than likes of the Red Sea and that, because obviously that's where they live in it. But certainly over here, 5-10 metres, there's tons of stuff there. And then you start going a bit deeper and it's just not as plentiful, is it?
No, that's it. Stony Cove, for me, is a classic example. I think, like most of us, you've been down to the pit at some point.
Yeah.
And I kind of went down there and went, okay, it's dark, it's cold. Yeah, there's a metal box and lots of sand. and it was kind of like, I've been there, done it. When I dive at Stony, I very rarely go off I go around the edge of the pit, where the pipes with the holes and various things. There's a little dive you can do where you just circulate the whole outer edge of the pit, and for me that's about an hour's dive at probably 18 meters average or something. Yeah. You can just, obviously with everything else, I've not done that one for a few years, but it's a handy dive, and then you've got the ledge to finish on, so you can, you get back up on the ledge, and that's where the life starts. You've got the fish there. Yeah. If you just touch the stones on the bottom, you've got the fish come in and feed because they're so familiar with the divers and everything like that. So for me, it's the shallow is the fun part, really, unless you're specifically going to look at a wreck or something. I mean, I've been there. I've done Scapa Flow. I've done some of the sort of mid-range stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I always enjoy the end of the dive when you come up and you're doing your stops and the wildlife sort of comes back.
Stoney's probably the only place I've ever seen any crayfish, to be fair. And even then, when we dived it a few weeks ago, I didn't see one. I think I saw a few sort of skeletons, let's say, of them, but I didn't see one. I mean, I don't know whether that's something that's been fished out now. Do you know about that or not?
I don't know whether they've had a problem with the water in recent years, because they used to be all over the place. You couldn't move a stone without there being a crayfish scuttling around. But the last few times I've dived there, well, in fact, over a few years, the numbers seem to have diminished for whatever reason. And like you say, you do see a lot of dead ones laying around now. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether it was like maybe last time they had the algae bloom, or because obviously that seems to be a recurring problem in recent years. Yeah, it seems to last for longer. I mean, when I first learned to dive, you go to Stony Cove like all year round, and you just never got the algae bloom. But now you seem to, it starts early in the year and it seems to go on for ages sometimes.
Oh God, mate, we're going to start talking about politics and global warming now, aren't we?
I think we'll give that one a miss, maybe.
Yeah.
We've done COVID.
Episode 2 with Derek Marshall talking flat earthers and global warming. And why not throw Donald Trump in the mix just for the crack? Wow. So, I mean, I'll get on to why you've not been diving for a while in a bit, but what kind of diving, short of the shallows that you just talked about, what kind of diving do you do?
I think like everyone else, you do your learning, and then you probably find, like, obviously for me, Stony Cove's really local, so you go in, you practice on the ledge, then you drop off down to the Wessex and the Staingarth, obviously nowadays. I mean, when I first learned, there was not very much on that area where the Staingarth is these days, because obviously there's now the free wrecks. There's the Defiant, and is it the Belinda, the other one, I think?
I'm not sure.
And none of those were there sort of the first 5 years of my sort of diving life, and then they put the Staingarth in. Yeah. So you just went down and it was silty bottom, and then I mean, I learned in Plymouth, so obviously you've got so many wrecks in the channel down that area. When I learned, the wreck to go to at the time was the James Egan Lane. Yeah. The Scylla wasn't yet down there. No. The Scylla went in probably, I think, nearly 10 years after I learned. And so it was like, oh yeah, I'll build up to doing the James Egan Lane, which is like the bow used to sit around in 6 meters with the line for your stops and the buoy for the shot were there. And then you go down to the bottom and it'd be about 14 meters, I think, from memory. And then it got deeper the further back you went. So my early dives were always sort of, we'll go down until we get to about 20 meters and then come across the wreck and that kind of thing. And then as you go on, you get a bit more experience. You change your kit so you can go slightly deeper. And I progressed through single 12, single 15 if I wanted a slightly longer dive. And then, of course, I added the pony in. And then over the years, I just did more and more diving, mostly off the boats on the south coast. And then in later years, like the Red Sea liverboards, things like that, the holiday diving. Some diving in Malta, a little bit in Ibiza. Wow. Took a cheap holiday there once. It's it's like, well, it wasn't somewhere that was on my diving bucket list, but it was nice to dive there, and actually it was quite nice, Right. And then over the years, I just built up, went on to a Twinset and a wing, and built myself up so I could do scapper. Because the first time I went up there, I did it on a single and pony, and then the next 2 times I was on Twinsets.
What, were you on twin 12s?
Yeah, twin 12s, manifolded jobbies.
Yeah, nice one. I tell you what, I have seen on boats so many different configurations of twin sets that are both 12 litres, or I've seen dumpy 12s, not manifolded. I've seen 2 different types of 12-litre cylinder valves. One's got an A-clamp, one's on a DIN. You're like, mate, I've even seen someone with a full set of regulators on both sides. So literally 4 second stages. I'm like, mate, how many buddies do you need? How many buddies are you taking in?
It's when you're kitting up and you look at somebody with a kit like that, and they've probably got 2 different coloured gloves as well, because they've had them forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of the stereotypical old British diver, sort of thing. Oh yeah, we've got a blue glove and a red glove because my other one got lost on a wreck 20 years ago or something. And then they kit up, and one of my old dive buddies did this. He put the L and the R on his fins.
No way.
And then wore them the wrong way around deliberately. So you get all the. I think over the years I've probably seen most kit configurations. I've seen somebody who shall remain nameless, but managed to put his dry suit on back to front.
Wow.
So it's like, the kit can take a beating as well. So.
I bet. That's funny. So let's get on to Scapa. This is kind of the main. Obviously, we got introduced due to beards. I remember you mentioning you messaged me saying I followed you on YouTube or something. Nice beard, and then we got chatting, and this is really the main reason we're talking. So you up in Scapa Flow, and your drama's up there. How did you first get up to Scapa Flow? Like, was it with a club trip or?
When Yorkshire Divers, the forum was a big thing.
Yeah.
In its sort of halcyon days. Everyone organised trips and things up there, and it was like, yeah, I've got to go up there at some point. And there was 3 of us got together and said, we all dived pretty similar depth, pretty similar kit. One was on Twinset, 2 of us were on a single and pony. And we said, well, if we dive as a free, then we just, go with whoever's got the least capacity or wants to stay down the least, normal sort of rule 1.
Yeah. And
so we booked on a trip up there. I think it was a trip that used to people would put the trip up on YD, and you'd put your name on it until the 12 places were gone, or 10 places, or whatever. And so we sort of knew a few people on the trip anyway, and went up and did it. But being one of the single and pony divers, obviously a lot of the wrecks were really a little bit out of the range.
Yeah.
So it was like, things like we did the mark graph, but it's like, I went down and basically sat on the upturned hull, because it's like, it's 32 meters or something down to the hull, but you drop over the side and obviously you can go right down to the bottom. And it was just like, no, maybe not. not on a single. No. So then I got the pony rig sorted out, and went back up the next year on my own and just buddied up with people on the boat. I just picked up a spare place.
Yeah. And
buddied with a couple of people who were on the trip, similar, single divers. So met up and just did that. And then the 3rd time I went back, all sort of properly sorted. And that was the one where we had the fun.
So are you diving Twinset on this last one, on the latest one?
Yes, Twinset and one of the OMS wings, the donut sort of ones.
Yeah.
I'd previously I'd been using the old sort of classic wing, the angel sort of wing shaped one.
Yeah.
But I'd moved on to a donut type one. It was going on really well with it, no problems.
Is this the one? Sorry to interrupt. Is this the one with all the death by bungees all the way around?
Oh no.
Good lad.
I know the one you mean. No, I never had one of those. That's the one where when you do your technical stuff, they go around and cut all the bungees off.
Absolutely,
the dive or something, don't they? You won't be needing these bits.
No. Thinking outside the box with that, at least, the one I dive is pretty much the same, but without the bungees on. But if the air that's in that needs to gravitate round or move round, it can do quite freely. But I would assume them bungees, they're good for dumping the air out. But if the air needs to move, it just creates pockets that maybe it can't. You know, it might get trapped. I mean, I can't think why.
I guess, particularly when it's nearly empty.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously it can. I mean, the idea of the bungee, I assume, is to stop it flapping around too much when it's empty, almost like those extendable suitcases. You know, that sort of. As you put more air in, it will send the bungee out. But I don't know. I've never actually dived one, so I can't speak from any experience on that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny when you see on like the Facebook groups and that, people taking great big soapbox stances about different bits of kit, whether it be split fins or bungees on your wing or whatever computer you're using. I think it's dead funny. I don't know whether they're just taking the mick or they're actually, you know, all over serious. Oh, you're going to die because you've got split fins on, or a sheer water computer. Whatever.
Yeah, you get the sort of schools of thought, don't you, that either a particular item of kit is not what you like, or maybe if you're not sort of uniform amongst your 2 or your 3 or whatever you're diving as, you know, that can cause issues. I mean, I've always been of the school of thought, as long as you do your buddy check and you have a really good look at your buddy's kit before you start, you know, before you jump in the water, you know, and you know that, like nowadays, being back on BCDs, you know, I've got the absolute classic buddy commando.
Yeah.
And you've got to know whether your buddy's got the pool dump or not, because obviously some BCDs have that and some don't. You know, on the inflated pool dump.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you know the kit, and hopefully as long as you know the person you're diving with, obviously that always helps it. When you're holiday diving and obviously you get paired with a stranger, that's when it can be more interesting.
Yeah, because you've no idea
whether
they even speak your language.
Yeah, that's it. Because you think anything could happen at this point. I mean, obviously anything can happen on any dive, but on holiday diving, you know, particularly if you make the mistake I made, and that was like, get on the liverboard and they're going through your logbook. You know, have you got the 50 dives that you want for this tour? Yeah, okay. Can I see your cert card? Yeah, oh yeah, hand over rescue dive or BSAC advanced or something. You know, and it's like you can just see the dive guides eyes light up. Oh, great, we can dump the newbie on this guy because they're experienced. And I've had that. So the last couple of times I went anywhere on holiday, I always just showed advanced open water.
Yes.
Take it back again.
Something you touched on was this sort of, you know, in your 2 or your 3, in this team sort of ethos that's more fashionable now. I think us all diving the same. Like me and my wife dive. The branding is different, but we both dive a backplate, wing, and harness. Our cutting tools are in the same place. You know, we dive a long hose, we dive a Twinset or whatever. I think with that, the danger is you can become complacent with, you know, where your buddy's kit is, so you don't bother checking it. Don't check it's turned on. And you assume that they've done their checks. Whereas if me and you were to dive together tomorrow, you hit the nail on the head. You would go through my kit as much as I would go through yours to make sure I know how it works. And how often I do that in my own world, in my own bubble. Fashionable, that word now, bubble, innit? No pun intended. But I reckon, you know, it is quite dangerous working in this team. It can be easy to become that complacent diver where you're not checking properly. And then obviously that leads on to accidents. So in my own world, I think that's something I'll take on board, at least from this conversation, if not from diving yesterday. Not that anyone died yesterday. Just put that out there quick.
Well, there was yeah. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
There was one dive I did with my most regular buddy. We were literally just using up the dregs of air in the cylinder. We were jumping off onto the ledge at Stoney. So 6 metre maximum dive kind of thing. Yeah, we can have like 15, 20 minutes in kind of like a third dive of the day, use up what we got left, then get a fill before we go home. And it was like, we stood at the side of the water, having already done 2 dives. And it's like, buddy check. Yeah, got one. You know, the classic joke. And we actually stood there and we did it. And we looked at each other and went, that's not sensible, is it really?
No.
But because we'd done probably 200 dives together, perhaps by that time, you just knew the other guy's kit so well. But that doesn't, you know, the big mistake there is, like you say, complacency. And if he has forgotten to turn his air on, or if I forgot to turn mine on, you're not going to know till we hit the water. And there's straight away at the start of the problems. There used to be an argument over the pony cylinders, didn't there? ponies were good or ponies were bad, and it depended on whether you sort of went down the line of thinking that, oh well, you've checked your main cylinders on, but have you checked your ponies on? This is two possible problem issues. Whereas obviously, say with a twin set, if you've manifolded it, it's going to be on.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're running indies, you can still have the same problem. But one of the little things I sort of adopted in my pre-dive check is, when, like I say, when you do your test breath, does it taste good, all that. I always used to take at least 2 or 3 breaths, simply because on a 12 with a standard set of regs, your reg and your octo.
Yeah.
If you take a breath, the needle won't move. If you pressurise it but then turn the cylinder off, it won't drop on the first breath, but it will on the second. So, like, when you're looking at your gauge and you've got run through your checks, it's like, I always take more than 1 breath, simply because if I get 2 breaths and it hasn't moved at all,
you're safe, aren't you?
One of those little things that you just sort of start doing. You sort of think about it one day, and then it just becomes part of your routine.
Yeah. Right, let's get back onto your dramas then. So you're on a twin set up in Scapa Flow. Is it the Outer Hebrides or the Inner Hebrides? That?
No, it's Orkney.
Orkney, right. So I'll delete that bit. I'll delete that bit. So you're up in Scapa Flow then, on your fresh, brand new twin set, manifolded. Who are you with?
What, as in up on boats?
No, who's your buddy? Is it someone you know, or?
Oh yeah, my buddy was my regular dive buddy that I dived with for well over 10 years, I think, by that point.
Right.
So, everything's familiar. I'd spent all that sort of summer going through my kit and
building up to it.
Everything was aimed at this trip, because it was like, right, this is the time. I've done 2 trips to Scapa, and there's been things I haven't done, or dives that have been blown out, as you do. And it's like, right, this time is where I'm going to hit the bottom of the wrecks and that. And we went up there. We dived the first day. I can't remember the first dive, but the second one was the F2 and barge. Nice, sensible, easy second dive. And then the next 2 days were blown out by an absolute hoolie up there.
It seems the norm up there. When we were up last week, it was exactly the same. Flipping it, you can't escape the wind. Well, I suppose it's right out at sea, though, isn't it? In some respects.
Yeah. Although it's obviously. It's the flow which keeps the water quite clear. It is exposed to the rest of the weather. So we lost 2 days, where obviously the boat couldn't go out. So we'd gone walking and played cards, eaten more cake, all the things you do when you can't dive.
Yeah.
And so we got to what would have been the 4th day of diving, but we basically almost had 3 days out of the water. And the option was kind of given, do you want to try for 3 dives today? We'll make a really early start, a really late finish, compared to a normal day. Yeah. You can have nice big surface intervals, all that sort of stuff. If you just want to do 2, great, do what you want. Obviously, it's your trip. And so, I thought, okay, we'll put an extra dive in. So we did the first dive.
Are you breathing Nitrox on this?
It was all Nitrox, 30 whatever was a handy percent for the dive. Different mixes each time, but I think it was mostly 34.
Right.
Maybe I can't remember if it was 32 or 34s. And then one of the mixes was slightly different, because obviously it was a different depth.
Yeah.
So it's all nice and Nitroxed. Pills between each dive, so fresh mix for what we're doing. So the first dive was sort of, 36. I think it might have been the Conference, Wilhelm. No issues. We weren't going crazy with the deco or anything like that, because we knew we were looking at sort of 3 dives. As a rule of thumb, it was like, just as you hit deco on the computer, we'll head up.
Yeah.
On the basis of, very often when you do that, by the time you get to your stop, you've actually cleared it off.
Yeah.
And then you do all your stops as normal. And obviously to the computer it's nice and legal.
Yeah. I think they did that with us in the Red Sea last year. Get within 5 minutes if you're not no decompression limits, and head up that way. Like you said, you're not gonna encounter any penalties for the next dive and the next dive. Especially doing 4 dives a day, You'll have a 5-minute dive on the last one, won't you?
Well, that's what we were thinking, and we knew all three were going to be,
big dives,
proper depths. No sort of F2 and barge at 12 meters or whatever. For bits of the dive. So we knew they were going to be, down dive and up the shots or up an SMB line. So first dive, no problems. Second dive, again, I can't remember which wreck it was, but it was about 32 meters, I think. We'd had a really long surface interval. It was, I think it was 3 and a bit hours.
Jeez,
so
to that, isn't it?
The computer was like, there's no. You look at the planning, there's no issue. Again, did exactly the same thing. Put the blob up or went back to the shot, whichever it was. When we were getting close to deco and came up, didn't even go into deco for anything to clear on the ascent on that dive. And then that's when it started, I suppose, really, because in that second surface interval, I just felt a little sore spot in my tummy.
Yeah.
And I thought, I sort of had a little look, and I got a little teeny weeny red mark, and I thought, right, that's exactly where my braces on the dry suit sit. So I thought, okay, the weight belt's crushed it. All the classic things, what we now know after the event is denial.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was literally it. One little and then done. The third dive was on the, I think it was the Dresden, so that's about 30 meters. Again, we'd had a nice long surface interval. Computers like as clear as it's going to be without waiting the 24 hours sort of thing. And again, the same tactic. I think we just about maybe had like that first, when a computer first triggers up, like 3 minutes was the first stop. Again, came up, it had all cleared by the time we got to the stop. Got back on the boat, no issues. And then, of course, as we're heading back into the harbour, the boat was out of Stromness. So as we're heading back into the harbour, I suddenly had a moment of the zigzags in the vision.
Yeah.
And that was when that was like the sit bolt upright and go, oh, hang on a minute, what's happening here, and then I sort of felt slightly lightheaded, but not in a sort of dangerous way, which could just be the worry or anything. And then and I thought, right, I'm going to give it 2 minutes and sort of have a think about this rather than rushing into it, which again is basically what what you call denial, I suppose, really.
But I think though, going off what you've said so far, it's right to be in denial, because if you've not bust any depth, you've been breathing the correct gas to be at that depth, i.e. the nitrox, so you're overcompensating in that respect. You've not broken any rules going down or coming back up, time-wise. It makes sense to go, I might just be a little bit like lacking energy or something rather than what you're now going to tell me. It's right, isn't it? You'd be like questioning yourself, I can't have an issue here. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I did was go and get my computer and double check, have I missed something? Have I had a fast descent warning at any point in the dive? All the things that the computer will tell you. And it's like, no fast descent. And considering I've got a computer where if you just pick your arm up to look at it, it'll beep. It was like, that's quite impressive not to have anything on it.
Yeah.
The little bar was at about 60-70%, saying out of the percentage of you can hit on the ascent rates. So everything looked great, but I thought, well, no, this isn't right. And then I pulled my t-shirt up and sort of saw the mottled rash that is sort of classic.
Yeah.
Or sort of all on me sort of tummy here.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I think I'm going to see the skipper.
No more denial.
No, that's it. It's like, no, I think that seals the deal.
On the plus side, though, you don't have to move any of your kit. Everyone's going to do that for you.
Well, that's it. We were just sat in the galley with a cup of tea at the time. So it's like, popped into the bridge, You all right, Derek? No, I don't think so. And literally, the skipper turned around and just went, leave that. Yeah, here's the O2 rig. Right, what's going on? So it's like I was on O2 within 5 seconds of walking into the bridge, which is a cracking turnaround. It's got to be said. And so I got the immediate sort of questions, and I said, yeah, and there's this, and like showed her the tummy, and she went, right, yeah. There's absolutely no doubt. And so it's like straight on the radio to the chamber and Stromness, get them on alert. It wasn't worth obviously doing the whole helicopter thing because we were only sort of 5 minutes out from the harbour. So yeah, I'm straight on the O2. One of them took a photo of the rash and actually emailed or sent that on the phone through to the chamber so they could see what the basis of the situation was. And then the deckhand was like on alert, and as soon as we hit the harbour, he was off, brought the car around, and he's like, "We'll drive you up there because it's the quickest option." And it's like within less than 5 minutes of the ship touching the harbour wall, I was actually walking through the doors into the building where the chamber is. So absolutely brilliant response from the the whole crew on the boat. I mean, obviously they take people out every day of the dive season. They know exactly what they're doing. All trained up, all the certifications that you can possibly have. So
clearly well practiced in the response of it, because I know how to rescue you, but I don't practice it very regularly. So I might be a bit slack when it comes to rescuing you. But if if it's in part of the sort of planning and procedures, or it's happened quite regularly, or more regular than you'd expect, then they're all over it. That's great, isn't it? So what's it like when you get in the chamber then? When you, as in the facility?
I mean, basically, obviously met at the door, right? Have a seat, keep breathing the O2 sort of thing. Let me have a look at your profile on the computer. So I showed them the free dives, and everything, and they went, there's nothing in there that screams issue. Potential for undeserved hit, as they call it sometimes. Obviously sorted all that out, and then off to the chamber sort of thing. Obviously within a few minutes more, you just had to wait for the person that comes in with you. I don't know whether they're a nurse or but the accompanying person. And into the chamber, shut the door, and obviously compressed down to, I can't remember, I think it's about 18 or 20 metres to start depth.
So somebody's in with you? Is that in case you go man down while you're in there?
Yeah, I guess so. If anything happens, I mean, they're there to, I suppose, if anything happens to the panel, they can control the chamber from inside. And obviously they're there if anything happens to me as well. And also, because it's going to be like a 4-hour plus session, they get the lovely job of getting your food for you.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like pizza or Chinese sort of?
Where's the option for both? I guess you can't have a bit like radios or something to keep you occupied in there, like a telly or anything, can you? Because of the O2?
No, because obviously all the mechanical parts, I guess, but it's like take a book or a magazine or whatever. I'd got John Banting's book with me that had just come out. The Diving Stories one. And so I hadn't finished reading that, so I took that with me. I thought, let's talk about people doing weird things whilst diving when I'm in the chamber. But that's kind of my humour. So.
Yeah. So how did you get on in the chamber? Was it quick, or what happened?
Like I say, it was down to about 18, 20 metres, and then it was like half hour on, then an air brake, half hour air brake, whatever the standard treatment table is. And then, you come up gradually and everything. By the time I surfaced, they were like, you do the tests as you go, the cognitive stuff, the balance stuff. And when we surfaced, they said, okay, right, that's all we'll do with you today. Come back in the morning.
Yeah.
And you go and see the actual doctor up there. Like the GP person will actually officially sign it off as having happened and everything,
right,
and refer you back to your GP if needed.
Okay.
But so you did all that, and then that was it, free to go. And I was, giving a lift back down to the boat we were staying on. And that was it for that night. And then the next morning, I had to go and see the GP, and they're like, okay, yeah, again, I've looked at your computer listings, can't see anything. This is where the big hammer blow sort of came in. It's like, right, we need you to have a bubble test done when, put you in the system to be in the waiting list for one when you get home, because what they basically said is, yes, the 3 dives we did, it was aggressive diving, 3, basically 30, 36, 32 and 30, I think.
Yeah.
They said, but given the surface intervals, yes, you push the envelope, but you've not actually gone over at any point. So, but because you're close to the envelope, we're thinking there could be a PFO.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned hole in the heart. So it's like, right, don't dive until you've had the test done, and go and have the test. So that was my week done up in Scapa. So I didn't dive again the rest of the trip. Oh yeah, definitely, because it was like, of course, the 2 days after that were really good weather as well, of course.
Oh, mate.
God's law, isn't it? Always happens to you, but you can't take the risk, obviously.
No.
And to be fair, everybody else on the boat, the crew and the other divers, they wouldn't let you.
No.
People are sensible. Even if you were like, oh, I'll be fine. It's like, no, you're not.
You'd be foolish, wouldn't it?
So, that was my trip curtailed. And then I had to wait sort of 6 months. Had to go down to Bristol. Got assigned to Dr. Turner, who's the new guy after Peter Wilmhurst retired. And he went through. We did the bubble test, and he sort of looked at the results and went, "Yeah, you got a PFO." And it's like, oh, great. And it's like, well, why didn't that show itself for like 650 dives then?
Yeah.
Because I was well up in that sort of area of number of dives ever by the time it hit. And he was saying it is just, you've been lucky to go that long, really. 25% of the population, they estimate, have some form of PFO. But it's only a problem when you're a diver, of course, because if you cough at depth or get it wrong, it just allows the gas to go through the hole into the wrong side of the heart and mess everything up.
Yeah. Can you, in as layman terms as possible, explain to me what a PFO is? I know, obviously, it's just more, there might be someone listening and going, PFO, what's he on about? Other than a hole in the heart, if you can. Yeah.
Basically, if you've got a hole, it's a perforation. Everyone has one at birth, and then it closes naturally. But for some people, it doesn't. And if you cough, this little flap can open, and the nitrogen bubbles, in the case of diving, can just go from one side to the other side. And then obviously they're basically where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then they go around the body in a different way, and that's when they get stuck. And
deoxygenated blood, like where it's coming from the heart to the lungs, but it should be going out.
Yeah, obviously, normally you breathe out the nitrogen, don't you, as it goes through your system. That's how you actually get rid of it. So instead of breathing it out, it's staying in the body, I guess.
Recirculated.
So it ended up obviously down in your tummy somewhere in a vein there or something, and just decided it was going to cause a problem. Fortunately, it didn't go up to the brain or places like that. So a skin, they used to say a skin bend was a minor bend. I mean, a bend is a bend. It doesn't matter if you've got a bend, you've got a bend. It doesn't matter what the symptoms are. But skin bends, I guess, are probably, if you're going to have one,
the better one.
Probably the easiest to deal with. Yeah.
Was it painful for you, or did you just have this noticeable rash that was uncomfortable?
Like I say, I had this little spot that was sore, but it wasn't painful. Like I say, it just felt like I'd been leaning on something for a while, and it had dug in,
like an irritation.
Yeah, so like if you lean on a belt buckle, you get like the imprint of the belt buckle on your waistline, don't you? That sort of thing. And it just felt like that, but ever so slightly sore, as if it had dug in.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I looked later and I got the rash there, it was like, okay. But yeah, the rash didn't hurt. Well, it wasn't tender. It wasn't, there was no pain. They always say the classic sign of the bends is joint pain. Obviously, it didn't go in those areas for me. So I'm very, very fortunate, thankful for that, really, because obviously I didn't end up with a really painful bend.
That treatment in the chamber, did it sort of get rid of the rash look of it quickly, or was it?
The rash had pretty much gone with the O2 treatment, actually. Yeah. So by the time I went in the chamber, it was vastly reduced.
Right.
Just from breathing O2 for sort of probably half an hour. Wow. I guess from the moment I went on it on the boat to the moment I went through the chamber door.
Jeez, that shows just how important that is, then, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because I was on, although I'd done a little bit of it can't be, it can be, is it, isn't it? Before I went to the skip. Fortunately, I'd only left it a few minutes. Although, obviously, realistically, I might well have actually done the third dive after being bent. But fortunately, again, if that's the case, and I don't think anyone will ever know that. No, it's not something you can really work out. But if I did, I got lucky in that respect. But yeah, from the moment it was like, right, okay, no, I need to get this checked, to getting on O2 literally within a minute or a couple of minutes of me thinking, right, I'll walk up to the bridge. Yeah, I think that made a big difference. It made it easily treatable at the chamber.
Yeah.
So for all the clubs that have got a boat and that, having the O2 kit there, and really, if you can, I mean, obviously on the ribs and things, normally in those sort of brown plastic screw lid things. Some boats, particularly the hard boats, with the lifts and stuff, they normally have one made up, sat on a chair in the cabin or in the crew house. And obviously, if it's already made up, that saves precious time. So it's definitely worth, if you're going to get on a boat that you've not been on before, even as a diver rather than a member of the crew, just check where it is.
Yeah,
because you or someone else might need it.
Defo. What about this PFO then? Is there any treatment you can have to get that to go, or is it just deal with it now?
There are treatments. You can have the hole plugged. What is it? An amflexor? I can't remember the word. It's a funny word, but it's a little, basically plastic plug that goes into the hole.
Yeah.
And then the skin grafts itself to it.
Right.
And that, assuming it's successful, is that's a complete fix. So if you imagine if you're going to put like a metal ring in on a ground sheet or on a tent, when you put your peg through those holes that have the metal rings in them, it's that concept. You put in the ring into the heart, into the wall, and then the heart does the same as the ground sheet or whatever in your tent. It just joins up with it. And if that takes successfully, which they normally do, that's a fix, and you can normally go back to pretty much sorted diving. Unfortunately, or at least unfortunately for me, you can't get that on the NHS anymore. And it's about, I think this would have been 2014. I think even then it was about 18,000
wow.
to have the operation done, because obviously you'd have to go private.
Yeah.
At the time, if you lived in Scotland, it was still available on the NHS, but it probably isn't by now, because obviously they've all had to make cuts. I personally haven't had that done because simply I couldn't afford it, but I would have had it done if it had been available.
Yeah. What countermeasures do you take now when you go on a dive?
The options were, the recommendation was to use the Canadian military tables, which apparently are really conservative. But it is very hard to find a computer that runs them. Yeah. And obviously going to paper tables limits everything even more. Yeah. So as an alternative to that, I was set a maximum equivalent air depth, basically. So, if I think the equivalent air depth for like a one dive day was about 21 meters. So if I was using Nitrox 32, well, the limit I set was 16 meters, or the equivalent air depth, which with a good Nitrox mix gets me down to about 21 meters.
Right.
Or it was like, well, if you're going to do 2 dives, you need a massive surface interval, and basically don't go over 10 meters.
Right.
Was my recommendations.
Jeez.
So I generally just do 1 dive days now, which is why I don't sort of go out on the boats now, because normally you pay your money and it's 2 dives. It's a lot of cost for 1 dive. So I tend to do, I either pick a dive I really want to do and do 1 good solid dive on that and then sit out the other one, or I'll do shore diving, Stony Cove, I'd just go and mess about on the ledge, the shallow stuff. And then I can do a couple of dives with a good surface interval.
Have you had any sort of relapses or reoccurring problems?
No. From the bend itself was a complete recovery. Straight away sort of thing. There wasn't any follow-up treatments required.
Nice one.
From that. I didn't dive really for about 18 months afterwards. So like 6 months I was waiting for the test, so I couldn't dive during that period. And then after that, it was, I'm out of practice. My buddies are doing different sort of diving now. I'll be holding them back. And then eventually I sort of did a couple of dives, went up to Captain Range, did a couple of like 10-meter dives, sort of down to the pod snap and that kind of thing, just around those areas. And then same at Stony, I went over to the Gresham wreck in the corner. And then again, I had a little break again. And then I started visiting some friends in America who do a lot of sort of quarry diving over there, their versions of Cap and Ray or Stony. So I took my gear and, because he's got Nitrox, so he's got a cylinder I could borrow, so I could get a good Nitrox mix. Yeah. And I've done quite a few dives over the years when I visited those on holidays and stuff. But only recently have I really got back into UK diving, which is, for me, really is what it's all about. If you can dive in the UK conditions, you can pretty much dive anywhere.
Absolutely, sort of Well, I interviewed, I don't know if you heard it, Simon Morris a couple of weeks ago. It went out like last week. And he's a sculptor from the sort of west coast of Canada, just off of Vancouver. But the reason I brought it up, it's not so much because he got bent. It's the fact that his means of getting back in the water after 10 years, by the way, of being out. He only dives on 40% now. So he's got a super rich mix, and he'll only dive in a team of 3 or on his own. That way, if one of his buddies gets injured or needs recovering, he doesn't have to be that party. He can just let the other buddy save them, and he'll see you on the surface, because obviously if he comes up very quick, he can
deal with his own situation, because he needs a nice conservative ascent and that sort of thing. I mean, one of the things I do similar, when I dive, I always take longer to come up that last 6 meters, from the stop. I try and extend the stop by an extra minute or so, just for conservatism. And then I come up as slowly as I possibly can from 6 to the surface, because, there's some science out there to suggest that that's a vulnerable period, isn't it? You think, I'm nearly there now. And sort of
but that is the max expansion, isn't it? In that top 10 meters, that's where the gas is just going to go, if it's going anywhere. Certainly the places you've said about where you go diving, shore diving, or whether you're in Cape and Ray or you're in Stony Cove, there's tons of stuff to see there. Like you said, you come back up onto that ledge where the bus stop is. You can hover around there for ages watching them perch underneath there, can't you? Or a lot of life. So you could spend quite happily 10 minutes at 5 meters instead of 3 and not really be
that's it. And like I was saying earlier, for me, just being in the water is fun. I don't need to be doing anything. I can just,
I get you.
Like on the 6 meter ledge, I can just sort of, I could quite happily sit on the bottom and just cross my arms, really.
Get your head down.
That wouldn't upset me.
Have a little power kip.
I'll have a nap now.
Shame you can't take a brew down.
On the bottom for the remaining 20 minutes to be there.
Yes, mate.
So yeah, I'm quite happy doing that sort of thing. But like you say, there's always something, particularly in the inland centres. You've either got fish or you've got students coming past. You can watch.
Yeah.
You've got training platforms. You can do your own. You can practice your hovers. You can start messing. Mass changes. You can do anything like that.
Yeah.
Get your skills up to scratch. A dive doesn't. If you've still got plenty of air, and generally I do because I don't spend that long at the depth anymore. If you've got the air, the dive doesn't have to end as soon as you've done your 3 minutes.
No.
So many people, that's how they do it. Oh, I've done my 3 minutes, right, up we go, up and out.
Yeah.
But if you're not cold, if you've not got any problems and your buddy's not bored, sort of thing, just sit and watch the wildlife, do some kit drills, practice your buoyancy, just try and get yourself neutral and get into that habit of sorting your buoyancy so that you do just go up and down that little bit when you breathe in and out, rather than, I won't say crashing down, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sort of, what we've all experienced when we learn, you're all over the place. And
absolutely.
Obviously, with me having a few gaps, when you get back in, that first dive, you spend the first 10 minutes thinking, what am I doing? I'm better than this. And you're going, well, actually, no, you're not anymore because you've been out of the water.
But it's quite easy. Do you not find your buoyancy control when you're moving through the water is really easy? Because you kind of adjust naturally with your feet or maybe where your arms are in the water to keep you in the right trim or the right position. But as soon as you stop and you're actually trying to hover and not move, wow, that's hard. Even with a week out.
Yeah. As soon as you stop, you either sort of start heading up or start heading down, depending on whichever way you sort of compensate. Some people make themselves a little bit sort of heavy, so they'll naturally sink when they stop, but they're finning all the time, so that counterbalances it.
Yeah.
Other people are the other way. They make themselves slightly, slightly positively buoyant, and end up sort of finning downwards all the time. Yeah. The true test of your buoyancy is to stop, say, a metre off the bottom, and see if you stay there.
I think where we fall foul with instructing and with newer students, certainly the places we're talking about, your inland quarries and that, we tend to have a swim back up, don't we? We're not as in along a gravel shelf that comes up to 5 or 6 metres and you hover around that and learn to hover around that, rather than when we become established divers and we're perhaps diving off boats and you're coming up an anchor line or a shot line, you're in mid-water. That's a proper test, isn't it?
Yeah, when you've got no reference point apart from like the sediment in the water or whatever.
Yeah.
That's your true buoyancy. Obviously, more often than not, if you're diving in the sea, you've got some form of line, either your own DSMB, your buddy's DSMB, shot line, anchor, anything like that, and you can just I used to put my fingers in an O.
Yeah.
And just put around the line, not holding the line, but just circling the line, because that way you're not dragging the line if it's your buddy's DSMB or anything like that. And equally, if it's a shot line, you can have half a dozen divers on the line, all tugging it different ways.
I can't look at anyone, me. I have to turn away. Literally go the other way and not look at them. Because you naturally move your feet anyway, don't you? So you end up bumping heads. So if me and my wife who dive together, we try and almost lie side by side, facing the same direction. So you can kind of just go like that and see each other. But then if you do start moving your fins to stabilise, you're not going to keep banging into each other.
I've got a theory on that. I think all the shot lines have got magnets in. Because it's like as soon as you get on a shot line, two divers, they just magically go doink.
Yes.
And you can both be finning apart and you still end up nudging each other's elbows or shoulders or knocking a fin.
The best one I heard is someone said that in Cape and Ray, there's a bit of a flow because we keep drifting towards each other. I'm like, shut up. It's an inland site. Yeah, but there's a spring and a waterfall. Yeah, there's not flow in Cape and Ray. Or wind. Yeah, it's wind, mate, at 6 metres. Funny idea.
The wind is blowing the buoy on the surface. That's what it is.
That's right. It's blowing it into each other's faces. Listen, I better go, mate. Have you seen the time? She's going to go nuts.
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely be in trouble then.
Oh, she has texted me. Serving. Can't wait any longer. I better go. Well, like I said, mate, it's nice to see you. thanks for coming on, and I appreciate you sharing your story.
Hopefully you get something out of that. I don't know how boring it came across. I don't know what I'm like. So
behave yourself, mate. But like I said, it's gonna be a story that to hear from the horse's mouth for a new diver rather than them reading from a syllabus. It would be. I would have found that quite interesting. You know, if on one of the dive lectures I went to of an evening at my dive club, if I could have listened to someone say, "Oh, this is what happened. We did everything as per what we should do, and I still got bent," it almost would have driven home the seriousness of doing everything to the letter. Because it might not have happened. I made
reference to the sort of, always learn from it, and just anything can happen, because that's what people need to hear, I think.
Absolutely,
but, yeah, cool.
All right, buddy, take it easy. Have a great birthday tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll do my best. There might be a couple of beers in the evening.
Ace. Well, I do hope you have a great birthday, mate, and I'll best go and face the wife, Anna. Now I've been half an hour late for my dinner. Right, see you soon. Take it easy, pal.
Thank you soon.
Nice one. Bye bye. See you. So that brings to an end episode 29 with my friend Derek Marshall. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel, and the link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And if there's something or someone you'd like us to discuss, let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.